Here's something almost nobody will tell you about your prices. Your price is not just a number, it is a message. And when your price is too low, the best customers you could ever ask for hear one thing loud and clear: do not trust this. Now, pricing trips up almost every founder I've ever worked with, and honestly, after 30 years of building companies, it has tripped me up too. So I went and studied how the best ones do it, and I'm going to give you the whole thing, the exact way I would land on a price this week, the story of a company that nearly died from charging too little, then sold for $3 billion, and the most expensive thing I ever had to price, which was not software at all. It was a surgical robot. Quick bit of background, then we dig in. 3 decades starting and scaling companies from software to surgical robotics, and I've sat on both sides of the price tag, and I've gotten it wrong from both. So here is why pricing feels impossible. Go looking for help and you find 2 kinds of videos. One kind is for freelancers, how to charge for your time, how to quote a logo, how to bill by the hour, genuinely useful if you sell hours. The other kind is a 90-minute business school lecture full of charts you'll never open again, and almost nobody is talking to the person stuck in the middle, the founder who has a product, a few customers, and has to decide on an actual number by Friday. That person is you, so we're going to stay right there. A real product, real customers, a real number. And I'm going to walk you through how the best founders land on it. Let's start with the mistake that quietly costs you the most. Here is the mistake. Most founders price from their costs. You add up what it takes to build the thing, you tack on a margin that feels fair, and that becomes the price. It feels responsible. It is actually leaving money all over the table because there are 3 numbers in play, and your cost is only one of them. Picture 3 points on a line. There is your cost, what it takes to deliver. There's your price, what you charge. And way out at the end, there is the value, what the customer actually gets out of it. The space between your cost and your price, that is your margin. But the space between your price and the value, that is the money you are choosing to walk away from. Cost plus pricing never even looks at that second gap. Now back to the idea from the very top, because this is where it gets interesting. Your price is a signal. When a customer cannot easily judge how good you are, and most of the time they truly cannot, the price itself becomes the evidence. Too cheap, and they do not think what a deal, they think what is wrong with it. Let me tell you about a company called Segment. 2 engineers, fresh out of building developer tools, and they were not used to paying for software themselves. So they assumed nobody else would either. They gave the product away for free. And when they finally worked up the nerve to charge, they were terrified. They went back to their free users, almost apologizing, and said they were going to start charging $10 a month. And here is what happened. One customer wrote back and said, "I hope you're going to charge me more than that. Otherwise, I'm worried about trusting you with my data." The low price was scaring people off, so they brought in a sales advisor. And the advisor looked at that $10 a month, which adds up to about $120 a year, and said, "No, your price should be $120,000 a year instead, 1,000 times higher." They nearly fell out of their chairs. They settled at $18,000 a year, and Segment eventually sold to Twilio for more than $3 billion. Sit with that for a second. The same product, the same code. At $120 a year, it almost died on the shelf. At $18,000 a year, it became a real business. The price did not describe the value. The price helped create it. And founders who have lived this say the same thing over and over. Almost every customer I lost over price was a customer I was glad to lose. So if pricing too low is the trap, then the hard question is the obvious one. How do you actually pick the number? Not a theory, a number you could put on your website this week and feel good about. That is the rest of this video, and it comes down to 4 moves. Here's the first. Move 1. Find your value by asking for it. Get on a call with a customer or with someone who signed up and never paid and ask one simple question: what were you hoping this would do for you? Their answer, almost every single time, lands in one of 4 brackets. Make them money, save them time, or take away a risk that scares them. That is the whole list. That is where real value lives. And the moment you can say out loud which bucket you are in and roughly what that bucket is worth to them, you have stopped guessing at a price. You are pricing against something real. Make it concrete. Say your software saves a team 10 hours every week. Don't price the software, price the 10 hours. What is a skilled person's time worth? $50 an hour? $100? Suddenly, you're saving them thousands of dollars a month, and a few $100s for your product looks like a steal. Same product, completely different conversation. Move 2 is the one that changed how I think about all of this, and it comes straight from that most expensive thing I ever had to price. Not an app, a surgical robot. When you sell a system like that into a hospital, the number is enormous, and everybody in the room wants to argue about the wrong thing. The argument always goes the same way. Are robot-assisted surgeons actually better than the small handful who can do the procedure by hand? And my answer, every time, is that it does not matter, because that is not the point. The point is that we grew the population of surgeons who can perform a minimally invasive procedure by orders of magnitude. More surgeons, more patients. That is how we all win. Now, hear what that has to do with your price. The hospital is not really comparing the robot to those few master surgeons. They are comparing it to the realistic alternative: open surgery. Longer recoveries, far fewer patients helped. That is the counterfactual. And the value of the robot is the size of the gap between it and that real alternative. You price against what the buyer would actually do instead of buying you. So ask it about your own product, not what does this cost me to make? Ask, what would this customer actually do if I did not exist? Maybe they hire someone. Maybe they duct tape 5 other tools together. Maybe they just keep bleeding from the problem. Whatever that real alternative is, that is what you are priced against. And it is almost always worth far more than what you are charging today. Move 3, let people choose. It's called good, better, best, and it's one of the oldest moves in business. Back in 1924, Alfred Sloan built it right into General Motors on purpose. A car for every person purpose. Chevy at the bottom, then Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, and Cadillac at the very top. 5 rungs, so there was a place for everyone to stand. You feel the same pull on a restaurant wine list. There's a cheap bottle, a frighteningly expensive one, and a comfortable middle. Most of us do not really know wine, and we don't want to look cheap, and we don't want to overpay for something we can't even appreciate. So we drift to the middle. That expensive bottle is not really there to sell. It's there to make the middle feel just right. But here's my favorite version of this, because it actually broke the rule. Go back to when I was a teenager buying 5¼ floppy disks with babysitting money. A friend of mine, who I wouldn't meet for several more decades, was a product manager at Dyson, one of the companies famous for high-quality disks, and he swears he helped invent good, better, best for floppies. The tiers came down to testing. Normally, only about 10% of the disks in a run get a full surface scan to make sure they are flawless. So they built 3 levels. The basic box got the usual 10%, the middle one around half, and the top tier, every single one, 100% surface tested. The executives thought it was ridiculous. Nobody, they said, buys a floppy disk because more of them happen to be tested. They will just grab the cheapest box on the shelf. And they were wrong. People reached right past the cheap box and bought the top tier. And I was one of them. I didn't have much money, and that was exactly the point. I was not about to gamble my tiny budget on the disc that might be the bad one. The top tier was not selling better plastic, it was selling certainty. And to a nervous buyer, certainty is absolutely worth paying for. Here is the rule I want you to take from that. Every tier has to be a real home for a real customer. It is fine if somebody buys the basic version and grows into more later, but it is not fine if they choose the basic version, look at everything it leaves out, and walk away feeling cheated, because now that's your brand. Build 3 tiers a real person would be glad to live in. Expect most people to land in the middle, and stay open to the surprise if the top one happens to win. Which brings us to move 4. How do you know you got the number right? And fair warning, it feels wrong the first time you try it. Raise your price until the customers start to flinch, but still say yes. That flinch is the whole signal. If everyone says yes instantly with a big smile, you are too cheap. The right price is the one where they pause, they think about it, maybe they grumble a little, and they pay you anyway. And do not panic about getting it perfect, because pricing is not permanent. You can raise it on new customers first and leave your early believers right where they are. Netflix has raised prices on hundreds of millions of people, a little at a time, for years. If they can do it across the entire world, you can absolutely do it across your first handful of customers. One last thing, for the moment they push back. When a customer asks why it costs that much, every instinct screams at you to justify it, to rattle off your hours, your features, your years of experience. Don't. You do not walk into a bakery and demand they justify the price of the bread. You decide if it is worth it to you. Calmly, kindly, you just say, this is the price, and here is what you get for it. Because the whole game here is not about convincing anyone. It is about clarifying. Your job is to help the customers see clearly what they are getting and what it is genuinely worth to them. Do that well, and the price stops being an argument you have to win. It becomes the obvious, fair conclusion of a conversation you walked them through. So here's the whole thing in one breath. Stop pricing from your cost. Remember that your price is a message, and too cheap whispers, "Do not trust me." Find your real value in those 4 buckets. Price against the customer's true alternative. Give them good, better, best, and then raise it until they flinch and still say yes. And do not just nod along with this. Go do one thing today. Pick the single most underpriced thing you sell and raise its price. Just one. See what happens. If this helped, I wrote a book about finishing what you start as a founder. It's called Founders Who Finish, and you can grab it along with my newsletter, The Build, over at davesaunders.net. Now, go raise that price.